Hi friends, welcome back to Quick Poetry Knowledge. This is Mehjabin. In today's video, I'm going to narrate stanza by stanza summary of Andrew Marvell's poem, The Garden. The poet begins by saying that some efforts of men who wish to win a crown of leaves of a palm tree or an oak tree or a laurel tree are crazy. Some want to get this crown to mark their military achievements, while there are others who want to wear it as a symbol of their civic or poetic successes. Men do endless work just to get a crown of leaves from a single tree or herb. The short trees that have shades that get narrower criticize men for their hard work. All flowers and trees unite to weave garlands. These are garlands of shade. They give rest and calmness to men. They are much better than the crowns of leaves that men aim at achieving. The poet next addresses quietness and says that she is beautiful. The poet came upon fair quiet in this garden. He also found her sister Innocence here. The poet acknowledges the mistakes he had made in the past. For a long time he had sought quietness in the company of busy people. Now the poet believes that the holy plants that quietness sows on the face of the earth are found here in this garden. Such plants are not available where large crowds of people exist. The company of solitude is beautiful. On the other hand, the company of people is harsh. The green color of the plants and trees in the garden is lovely. Neither the fair complexion of women nor the redness in their lips can compete with the soothing feeling that the green color of the plants can give. Next, the poet talks about devoted lovers who carve the names of their beloved in the barks of the trees or on their own flesh so as to express their passion and loyalty. The poet feels that these lovers behave foolishly. Their acts are as cruel as the fire of love which tortures them. The poet feels sorry for these young lovers because they do not pay any attention to the beauty of the gardens they visit. These lovers are not aware of the fact that the gardens are far more beautiful than the women with whom they are in love. The poet addresses the beautiful trees in the garden. He pledges not to carve any woman's name on the bark of these trees. If at all he uses a knife to make carvings on the tree barks, he will carve the names of these lovely trees instead of carving out the name of any woman. In the fourth stanza, the poet gives the idea that when Cupid, the god of love, is not actively engaged in the task of making people fall in love, he retreats into the garden to get some relaxation. In the same way, when the passions of men get exhausted, men withdraw into a garden to take rest. The gods who go in pursuit of earthly women whom they consider beautiful discover that their chase has come to an end the moment they get hold of trees instead of women. The poet gives the example of the god Apollo who ran after the nymph Daphne. He pursued her not because he wanted to hold a woman, but because he wanted to hold the laurel tree into which Daphne would be transformed. In the same way, god Pan chased the nymph Syrinx not because he desired her physically, but because he wanted to catch a reed into which the nymph was to be transformed. The poet exclaims that he is having a wonderful time in the garden. He can see ripe apples hanging down from the trees. These apples touch his head. As he walks around in the garden, the lovely tasty bunches of grapes growing on the vines touch his lips. The juice of these grapes enter his mouth. Even the nectarines and peaches reach his hands without his making any effort to touch them. He can see melons growing in abundance on the ground. They touch his feet as he walks. His walk is obstructed by these plentiful melons and his feet gets entangled by the flowers. He trips and falls on the grass. As his body stays with the grass, the mind of the poet is transported to a different realm. The mind is not interested in the lesser pleasures offered by the fruits in the garden. The mind is in the pursuit of a joy of a different level. This joy originates from the mind itself. The mind can be compared to an ocean, and each living thing growing on land has its counterpart in the water, yet the mind is also capable of growing different lands and oceans. These are so majestic that they overshadow the real lands and real oceans. The mind is capable of reducing everything that has been created to nothingness. It gives rise to fresh and powerful thoughts in the shade of a green tree. Here near the fountains, the feet of the poet slips because the ground is wet. Or near some fruit trees, the lower parts of the trunks of which are covered with moss, the poet's feet slips. The soul of the poet abandons the outer garment of his body. It goes quietly into the branches of the trees. His soul sits on the branches like a bird and sings. Then the poet's soul preens and combs its bright wings just as a bird does. Eventually, having prepared itself for a longer flight, the soul carries in its wings the variegated sunlight. Next, the poet says that in this place he found himself in the same joyful situation in which Adam was when, in the Garden of Eden, he walked alone without a companion. When he found himself in such a delightful place, no companion would have been suitable for him. But a mortal like Adam was not destined to roam in such a place all alone. If he had continued to live alone in the Garden of Eden, he would have got the pleasures of two paradises simultaneously. On the one hand, Adam would have got to enjoy the paradise of the Garden of Eden, and on the other, he would have earned the paradise of being alone. In the concluding lines of the poem, the poet remarks that the gardener who made the flowers and plants grow here in this pattern did a splendid job. The flowers and plants work as a sundial. The sun rays fall on the sundial with lower heat after passing through the green leaves. These leaves are compared to the zodiac or the heavenly bodies. The bee, which is hard at work, can calculate the passing of the time just as easily as human beings can by looking at this sundial. The poet feels that it would be impossible to measure the passing of such sweet and pleasing hours in the garden except by means of the floral patterned sundial. With this, I come to the end of today's video. I'll be meeting you again very soon, and until the next time we meet, bye.